David is having the most frightening nightmares.
Just your imagination.
You pray it will end, and it will.
Now we get the medical examiner's report. He thinks we got 2 lunatics out there cutting people up.
Last night's killer was a young, overweight female.
Certainly not very much to go on, is it?
All those kids ever eat are Twinkies. They're just like animals. Except for young Timothy, of course. And there's an orgy there every single night.
A real balloon, if you know what I mean.
I tell you, it was different parts of different bodies in different rooms. Had to make up kind of a composite of bits and pieces missing from all the other bodies. You know, a nice little ass here, a little tit over there.
These people, they're just sort of amateurs. I'm not sure they should even be allowed to have children.
The hell do you think you're doing, Waldo?
Hello, this is PJ Souls from Halloween and Innocent Prey and Carrie and totally a lot of other movies. And you are listening to The Hysteria Continues.
And indeed you are. Welcome back to The Hysteria Continues, and this time we're talking strange behaviour and dead kids. And this is episode, I think it's 183, but my tablet is frozen, so I can't look that up right at the moment. But yes, you are listening to The Hysteria Continues, and we are very pleased to be back after a little break, although in our usual time-travelling kind of way, we haven't let you down. You've had a show every 2 weeks from us, but we haven't recorded for a couple of weeks. So the gang is back together, and we're going to be talking about this kind of oddball slasher, mad scientist, sci-fi 50s 50s mashup a little bit later, and it's my choice, so I'll be talking about that. But before we get onto that and what we've been watching recently, let's say hello to everyone. So, Erik, how are you doing? Well, I'm glad to hear. And Nathan, how are you doing?
I'm doing very, 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 very well. I'm ready to talk about dead kids.
Brilliant. Okay.
Not like, you know what I mean?
Not like, well, I can make a very tasteless joke, but I won't.
You probably shouldn't.
No, I won't. So, and Joseph, how are you doing?
Pretty good. How about yourself?
Yes, not too bad, not too bad. I'd say off the bat, we're trying a different type of recording software, so we're hoping it's all going to be lovely and all come out all sounding crisp and very professional, but we can't promise anything. As you know, part of the charm of this Hysteria Continues is that we are slightly rough around the edges, and obviously some of us are rougher than others, but hopefully it'll all come together. And it's in some ways it's quite apt, as it's kind of like a giant science experiment, really. But let's talk in time-honoured tradition about what we've been watching recently. So, Erik, have you caught up with anything the last couple of weeks?
Not really, because I've been away in the UK for a fortnight, and then when I got back, I was watching Dead Kids and the 2 Brady Bunch movies, which is coming up soon, or has been out already, I'm not sure, on Patreon. I did watch, and there's a new American Horror Project box set coming out from Arrow. Ewan teased it the last time he was on with us, and it was officially released during the week, and it consists of 3 films. One is The Child, one is one called Dark August, which I've never heard of before, and one is called Dream No Evil, which I haven't heard of before either, but I'm kind of excited for it. Amanda Reyes, our good friend, is doing some liner notes for the box set. So I have volume 1, so I rewatched Malatesta's Carnival of Blood. I don't know if any of you guys have seen that one. It's quite trippy. Has anyone seen it?
God damn, settle down there, Nathan.
No, it's an awesome movie.
Nathan to watch while he has one of his funny cigarettes. It's kind of a plotless film about this carnival that has these people living under the ground who they're either supernatural ghouls or something of some kind, or they're just cannibals. It's never quite explained, and the film is kind of plotless and meandering. It's kind of like a fever dream, but it's very short, and it's quite watchable. There's some very interesting set design and good, cool visuals in it, but it's sort of that borderline between art and trash, and it's very, very, very surreal. You have to be in the proper mood to watch it. It's not a popcorn flick in any way. But as I said, I was watching it because I've got a American Horror story. What's it called? American Horror Project. Sorry, vibe going on, because I'm looking forward to the second box set, which I think is coming out in June. So yeah, that was what I watched. Nathan, you like it, yeah?
Yes, I do. I love the whole carnival atmosphere. It's very, I don't know.
Can you understand the film
describe
anyway?
it?
Because
It's just kind of a sleazy vibe, but I really like it.
yes, there's like people get eaten, blood gets drained, but it just none of it really makes any sense.
No,
but
it's-
that's kind of like its charm.
It's very disjointed, I would say.
Yeah, it's like a very, very surreal version of Messiah of Evil, which is itself kind of a surreal movie. That's all I've watched, I'm afraid, Justin.
Well, that's okay. That's okay. I saw Carnival of Blood. It's years and years and years ago. It was out on Wizard Video in the UK, and I think it seemed to be very gory, for what I remember, and it was released at a time when a lot of things had been cut. But it was very much kind of Herschel Gordon Lewis inspired, wasn't it? I think.
It's the same movie. This is called Malatesta's Carnival of Blood.
Ah, no, I'm not. It's a different Carnival of Blood I'm thinking of then, because Carnival of Blood, the one I'm thinking of, is one set at the carnival where people are being killed off one by one.
This one, people are being killed off, but it's as I said, it's got a very fever dream atmosphere to it, and there's a scene underneath the ground where there's a Volkswagen Beetle suspended upside down from the ceiling, and it's decorated with polystyrene cups and stuff to make it look like it has teeth, and it's just very weird.
It's not the same movie.
I was also thinking about the one that Justin was thinking about. I think it's a different movie than what Eric's talking about.
Yeah.
It takes place at the carnival.
That's right, and it's very Herschel Gordon Lewis, isn't it? It's all kind of like gore effects,
Like
and
gory and ridiculous, over the top. Yes.
yeah.
Okay,
Well,
it
it's-
must be a different movie then.
It's this episode's Get Out, and you're next, isn't it?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Every time.
Wait,
we'll have-
sorry. I was thinking of Pretty Woman. That's what I was thinking of. Sorry.
Oh, Eric. Well, thank you. Any other films that we can get confused over?
Oh, that was it.
Okay. Well, thank you. Nathan, how about you?
I caught up with Annabelle Creation.
Been released yet?
Which is the prequel to the Annabelle movie, and I really liked it. I thought that
You're thinking of the new one, Eric.
This week, I think.
That's right.
Creation is the one from a few years ago, yeah?
Yes.
It came out like 2 or 3 years ago, I think.
Yeah, I saw that one, yeah.
But yeah, I liked it, and I thought that it had some good scares in it. So, I would say it's worth checking out if you like those kind of movies. So,
Do you think they're kind of running out of steam now? Because the Nun was god awful, wasn't it?
No pun
watch
intended.
it because I heard bad things.
Oh, about the Nun. Okay. And there's is it the Crying Woman? Yeah, one's coming out, isn't it? They're based on the Mexican legend of.
It has some Spanish name, doesn't it? Yeah.
Something.
Or something, or
Viva España or something.
yeah.
But yeah, no, I'm kind of. I know the new Annabelle one's coming out, but I do wonder if they're starting to kind of run out of steam a little bit. I've enjoyed them all. I thought they're kind of, but I think I could never want to have to go for the Nun again.
Like it at all?
Did I not like it at all? Well, it's just kind of, it was just reminded me of that Van Helsing movie that came out a few years back, or more than a few years back, where they took everything that was kind of made the Universal Pictures kind of entertaining and just turned it up to like a 40 decibels, and it was just like endless action non-stop without any breath, which I think is great if you're a 14-year-old boy, but if you're, it's just kind of lots of noise, and it just becomes, it's just like the Nun. It's just endless set pieces and no resonance, nothing sticks. It's just kind of endless noise.
Yes, the Weeping Woman film is called The Curse of La Llorona.
La Llorona. Okay. Well, we'll remain to see how that one pans out. Is anything else, Nathan?
Yes, but Joseph actually saw it as well. We both went and saw Us at the theater, and I was going to let Joseph talk about that.
Okay. Well, Joseph, do you want to talk about Us? Neither myself or I presume Eric. Have you seen it yet?
Not yet, no. But if he wants to talk about Us, he can. How sexy am I?
I don't know. I haven't seen Us. Nathan's crazy. He's high again.
Oh, Nathan.
Is that right? You haven't seen it? Oh, you have.
He was there.
Actually, I have seen it. I really liked it a lot. A lot of people are saying that Jordan Peele is kind of the new M. Night Shyamalan, because M. Night Shyamalan, he made The Sixth Sense, which was this kind of box office and cultural phenomenon. And then he made Unbreakable, which a lot of the critics didn't like as much as The Sixth Sense. Now, I'm the complete opposite. I thought The Sixth Sense was just okay, and Unbreakable was fascinating. And I feel the same way about, Get Out and Us. I thought Get Out was just okay, kind of heavy-handed with all the symbolism, but I thought Us was just the right amount of symbolism. It's shot beautifully, acted beautifully. It's got a weird kind of sensibility to it. It's got some really offbeat humor that I liked. Now, anyone who's seen any movie ever will guess some of the plot points, particularly one of the last plot points of the film. I would be hard-pressed to think of anyone who did not see that coming. But, that's not a hindrance to the movie. It's still a very effective film. There's one scene, I'm trying not to spoil it too much because I know you two haven't seen it, but there's one scene featuring the Beach Boys, Good Vibrations, that I really loved. And then it kind of segues into a scene where they use NWA's Fuck the Police to hilarious effect. Now, this sounds like it's a horror comedy, and it's not a horror comedy. It just has some very dark, kind of weird humor, just in fits and spurts. It's not like, it's not overwhelming. It's the right amount. No, but I love the lead girl here. I love her family. I loved all the characters. I thought again, I'm trying not to spoil it too much, but I'm trying to think of the way to say this without spoiling it. There's basically one thing that's going on through the whole film, and then it kind of takes a turn into a different avenue. And I thought the second or different avenue they took was a little scarier than the first. So there's this escalation in the film that kind of keeps you on the edge of your seat that I really liked. Overall, it's a very colorful film. It's very, very just mesmerizing to look at. A lot of great symbolism, a great ending with a great ending shot, kind of calling back to the this kind of cancer movement of the mid 80s. I'm not going to name it because I don't want to spoil it, but it's a very, very effective social satire, genuine sense of horror where horror should be. The comedy's not overwhelming like it shouldn't be. Just thumbs up way up for me. I liked it a lot. I definitely want to see it again. Much better than Get Out. I know a lot of people prefer Get Out, but this felt more like a slasher film to me, and that's what I really wanted to see. So, yeah, thumbs way up for Us.
Okay. What about you, Nathan? Have you seen it as well?
I feel pretty much the same way. I thought that it was an excellent movie. I love that there's just a lot of reading between the lines in this movie that's very heavy on the symbolism, but it didn't really bother me. I like that aspect of it. And it's just one of those movies where after it was over, Wes and I kept discussing plot points from it. But in my opinion, it is much better to go into this ignore the hype for one, but also to go into it without reading anything about it, because even though, like Joe said, some of the plot points you probably will see coming, just the movie as a whole is just so much better to experience if you don't know what to expect.
Well, we'll see. I'm not sure if I'm going to get a chance to see it at the cinema here because, as I mentioned, living here, we only get some films. It tends to be the most popular films. The big blockbusters will be played in English once a week. So I don't know if we'll get that, if I'll get to see it here. So I might have to wait until it's out on Netflix or on demand. But we could see. But you're going to go and see it, Erik?
Well, I'd like to because I think the trailer looks awesome, and from what Nathan and Joseph have been saying, it's really enticing me. It's just a case of can I get a chance to see it while it's still in cinemas? So I may have to wait for a home video release.
Justin, you could go see Nosotros.
Nosotros, see.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, maybe I will. So, anything else, Joseph?
No, I think that's it for this week.
Okay, right. Well, I caught up with a couple of films. One was Happy Death Day to You. I know all you guys have seen that. So, yeah, well, to be honest, when I was thinking back to what you said, echoed exactly what you said, really. I think I felt it probably could have benefited by not turning into a Wile E. Coyote movie halfway through. I think it played the comedy card a little bit too much, I think. And so I agree with everything you said. It was the slasher movie angle really was kind of downplayed, which I thought was a shame, because the baby mask is quite creepy, and I think it had a kind of sense of fun and creepiness to the first film, which I think was kind of missing a little bit in the second film. Having said that, it was a lot of fun and the characters were great, and it did unexpectedly have a bit of a heart to it. So it was a bit, because you don't get many slasher movies that actually, give you feels, sort of, films like this and The Final Girls, but, kind of do it. So overall, I liked it, but I kind of would have preferred it hadn't gone quite so broadly comedic. So like elements of her throwing herself out of a plane in a bikini and things like that. It just kind of just pushed that little bit too far for me. That it made it almost too knowing. So when you actually found out who the killer was in this, which I won't spoil, but I thought it was kind of a good twist and all of that. But I'd like to see it again. Now I know kind of what they're going for with it. I had fun with it, but. Not as I didn't enjoy as much as the first film. So that was that. And another film we watched this afternoon because I couldn't get the A Very Brady sequel, which if you're a Patreon supporter, you'll know what I'm talking about because I mistakenly have lost the disc. We watched Escape from New York, which isn't a horror movie by any stretch, but of course has directed by John Carpenter and with Deborah Hill's involvement and lots of familiar faces from John Carpenter's The Fog and Halloween. And to my utter amazement, I realised I'd never seen it before. So again, it was one of these films from back in the day that I just presumed I'd watched on video 20 or 30 years ago, and I was watching it and I realised I'd read about it and I knew all about it, but I'd never actually seen it. So so I had a good time with that.
I like that film.
It's good, isn't it? Kurt Russell was very pretty in it, wasn't he, as well? I didn't realise quite how pretty he was.
That's why you like it. Oh, sorry. Okay.
Well, no, I was surprised. I forgot he was quite so pretty. But it was just a lot of fun. It was kind of
girly, but he's hunky, I think is the word you're.
Yes. Well, also I was going, spotting the different people and thinking, oh, it's the nurse from Halloween is a terrorist flying Air Force One at the beginning and things like that. So yeah. I had a lot of fun with it. And Ernest Borgnine chewing the scenery. Yeah. Sorry?
Does Nathan think of Escape from New York? Because I think it's one that maybe is a bit Marmitey for some John Carpenter fans.
Yeah.
I love Escape from New York. I'm not a fan of Escape from LA. I thought that was just a bungled sequel, but I love the first film.
The CGI surfing scene in Escape from LA has to be seen to be believed.
Yeah. Now, one thing I did like about the sequel is the Bruce Campbell cameo where he's the doctor, the mad doctor.
Yes,
the Surgeon General of Beverly Hills. I thought that was a very creepy scene in an otherwise kind of forgettable film.
I'd like to watch it again, only because I think it's, from what I remember, it's pretty terrible. But with age, it might have been kind of got a slightly campier feel to it, perhaps. So anyway, those are my two. Watch them being busy as well. So without further ado, maybe we should go on to the main feature. The synopsis is several teenage boys in Galesburg in Illinois are murdered, each apparently by a different killer. Local policeman John Brady investigates. The victims are sons of men who previously collaborated with John to investigate the unethical experiments of Galesburg University professor Dr. Lasang, who reportedly died years before, but still gives lectures via old films. Lasang's research is being continued by Gwen Parkinson. John, whose late wife had worked for Lasang, becomes convinced that Lasang is still alive and is waging a vendetta against those who's wronged him. So my first introduction to Dead Kids, aka Strange Behaviour, was when I found the VHS tape for this under its UK release, or one of its UK releases, Small Town Massacre, which looked like you couldn't look more like a 80s slasher if you tried. If you've ever seen the artwork for it, it's a kind of similarity to the Tor Johnson mask, which is used to great effect in the movie, but it's a painted image with somebody lunging out with a box cutter covered in blood, with the title "Small Town Massacre" in blood red dripping letters across it. And I thought, wow, this is going to be an amazing lost 80s slasher. So I remember watching this for the first time and thinking, well, what is this exactly? It's not, it's kind of an 80s slasher, but it's almost like a Frankenstein monster, which I kind of guess is quite apt given its science fiction-y feel. So coming back to this after all these years, because I can remember it being an odd film, and it is an odd film, but it's got enough of it's at its center, it is a slasher movie, through and through. And so much when it is a slasher movie, it's very much a slasher movie. It's almost parodying slashers from the time. And there's direct lifts from films like Halloween with tracking shots around a house. You've got quite sort of brutal knife murders. It's a film that kind of reminds me slightly of something like another film that had a kind of is a slasher overtones, but it goes off in a different direction, which is like John Russo's Midnight. But this is it's kind of a weird amalgamation, and it's kind of a love letter in some ways to 1950s horror and sci-fi and kind of monster movies, although there's no monsters in it as such. Although I guess you could certainly term the Mad Doctor, which of course is another staple of like the 1930s sort of horror cinema. And in this, you've got this kind of strange idea that they're doing experiments on these teenage boys and in some cases teenage girls, and turning them into effectively zombies. They go on killing sprees. And so that they are effectively become the dead kids of the title, or the strange behaviour of the title as well. It's one of these films that kind of it comes across as quite odd in so much that it was filmed in New Zealand with an American crew and cast, partly because the director couldn't find what felt like a 1950s picket fence style town in the United States. It seems strange. I'm sure they could have found something, but so they went to New Zealand, which it looks like a dead ringer for like an American town. I mean, I'd be interested to hear what Nathan and Joseph think about that, because to my eyes, it looks like I wouldn't be able to tell it wasn't in the United States. But when it is a slasher movie, I think it's pretty effective, and I like the quirkiness about it. I think there's my problem, and I think it's kind of it's a problem, and also it's a bonus in some ways because it's very unique. Is sometimes the pacing is a bit off, but it has this kind of uniqueness and this quirkiness, this kind of humour, but it still satisfies as a horror movie, and the kind of the ending. The two films that reminded me of, one was the ending to The Scaremaker, aka Girls' Night Out, which is a very different type of movie about campus murders, but they kind of the strange kind of villain revealed at the end, and it seemed to preempt David Cronenberg's Videodrome, I thought, with this kind of not exactly body horror, but is the kind of the weird future, but kind of a retro future almost, kind of making people do things. And in Videodrome's case, it was television, and in this case, it was almost parodying the brain dead teenagers, and i.e. the dead teenager genre, where teenagers are portrayed as ciphers, with no personality, but actually turning that on its head and making them exactly that. So they go out and kill their friends. So it's an odd film, and I think if you're expecting a straight-ahead slasher movie, you could make a very straight-ahead pure 80s slasher movie if you cut it down to half an hour. But that's not, I guess, not really the heart of the movie. But there's enough there to satisfy it as a slasher movie. But given that our resident Nathan is very anti-sci-fi and he's not a big sci-fi fan, I'm interested to hear what you thought about this film, Nathan. What was your take on it?
Well, I didn't mind it so much the sci-fi elements, because it takes place in modern times. I mean, the 80s when it was filmed, it takes place in those times, and it doesn't take place in outer space or anything. So, I mean, I think that's why it didn't bother me that much, really. I think with it, I kind of could see what you're saying. The pacing does seem a little off, but when, like you said, when the slashing is going on, it's good. Like, I love the scene where the couple's attacked in the car and the killer's kind of taunting the girl in the swimming pool. I thought that scene was very well done. It was just and the Tor Johnson mask. I've got one of those masks, by the way. And it is a pretty creepy mask, I've got to say. Like you said, when it turns up the slasher stuff, that's when I was most into it. When it wasn't doing the slasher stuff as much, I wasn't necessarily bored. I just was kind of hoping for, maybe more body count, more slasher. That's not really the heart of this movie. And to be honest with you, the movie's very good, for what it is. I enjoyed it. I didn't find it boring at all. I thought that, aside from some pacing issues, I thought that it was a fairly entertaining film. So, and I thought that Mark McClure, who played Oliver, I loved his dancing when they go to the party. Great moves there. But yeah, thumbs up from me. I liked it a lot.
Excellent. Well, thank you. Well, the party sequence is probably the best remembered scene from that. Again, they're all dressed in like 1950s and 1960s TV characters, and all dancing very enthusiastically to kind of 1960s, well, kind of like a old music, which is strange given that the end. Well, actually, there's modern music throughout the movie, but also you've got Tangerine Dream as well, which the soundtrack gives the film this kind of weird dreamlike feel to it. So it's kind of So I think am I right in thinking you're a bit of a Tangerine Dream fan, Erik?
I don't have a lot of their stuff, but I do like what I know of. I do like. I mean, they did some scores for sort of some Italian films from around this time as well. But I wouldn't be a big, I wouldn't be an encyclopedia about Tangerine Dream. I do like the name though.
Well, what did you think of the movie?
Yeah, I do like this film. As you're saying, like for me, whenever I think of Strange Behavior, I never consider it as a slasher film as such. I do think of it mainly as kind of a sci-fi horror, as a horror movie, kind of with a very slight sci-fi element, as Nathan was saying, because it takes place in the modern day and it's everyday people, and there's just this slight sci-fi edge to what's going on. But as you say, there is slasher elements in there, and that Tor Johnson mask scene is probably very typical of something that would be happening in a 1981 slasher movie, and then the person getting menaced in the swimming pool is like something straight out of The Prowler or that. And the fact that the killer is changing identity each time is kind of reminiscent of something like I suppose Terror Train with the different masks and that. I do like the film. I think it's very slick looking. I've got the Synapse DVD of the film it's about 2001, I think, and it looks great in widescreen. It's got that soft focus look that you get from a lot of films of that era. It's almost washed out in the daylight scenes with this kind of halos of light around the edges of the screen, which is it gives it this lovely sort of dated look. I think it has a real popcorn and fun vibe. I love, actually, there's a scene early on where the sheriff, we see he has a refrigerator in his office, and when it's opened, it's just full of various different types of beer. There's not a health drink or a bottle of water or anything to be seen. It's he's probably Sheriff Kurzweil by the sound of things. Are you a beer drinker, Justin? Are you strictly spirits?
I do. I don't mind a beer, but I find them a bit gassy. So I prefer red wine.
I'm not a beer fan. I'm a spirits all the way. Yeah. The standout scene for me is that well-remembered dance sequence. I love that sequence, and it's Lou Christie, a song called "Lightning Strikes," which I hadn't really been aware of before until I saw the film. I think it works really well. As you said, I suppose it's kind of odd. I think it's a '60s song. I'm guessing. All these kids from 1981 going to a party, you think be listening to Toya. But I think there's something about that, the way that scene is shot. It's kind of exhilarating and joyous, and I know sort of it sort of breaks the conventions of the narrative when they all start dancing in sequence, and it almost becomes kind of like a musical, like a scene from Grease. But I love it, and I think it just works really well. I love the scene where I think the character's name is Caroline, where she's describing what experiments they did on the mouse, as this waiter is standing there waiting to take her order, and she's saying, then they cut her open, then they removed its brain, then removed its liver, and I think they used that in the trailer as well. I think it's she's really funny, and she's a very likable sort of final girl. Do you all notice the Coke product placement prominently throughout the film? It's mentioned a lot, and also, bottles of Coke are propped in front of the screen at every available opportunity. It's kind of like the J&B of this of this film. There's a good amount of sort of genuinely horrific moments in there too. The body of the initial victim at the start, we see him later on as this kind of hollowed out scarecrow, which I thought was really effective. I love Fiona Lewis's evil hair as well. I mean, her hair emanates evilness, and if you're trying to be the front for this covert, sinister organization, you should go for a hairstyle that gives off more friendly vibes, like Farrah Fawcett flick or maybe a Rachel, but she goes for this kind of almost demon horn type hairdo.
It was kind of like Eva Braun or something, wasn't it? It was kind of...
Yeah, it was, yeah. I think it's a fun flick. I suppose like Nathan, I have kind of some reservations. There's something about the film that doesn't quite click for me. Is that it's not a film I would return to over and over again. But when I'm talking to you about it here, there's so much in the film I like, so I don't understand why it's not a film I would want to return to very often, because it does everything right. It's well made, it's slickly made, it's well acted, it's got good horror sequences, it's got that dance sequence that I love. So why isn't it something that I would return to over and over again? I don't know, there's some kind of je ne sais quoi that is just preventing me from putting this film into the upper tier of horror or slasher films. But I do like it, though. So that's my tuppence.
Okay, well, thank you. Joseph, how about you?
Oh, I really love Strange Behavior. When they get to the party and they're all dancing in unison to Lou Christie's Lightning Strikes, I mean, at that point, you're just like, okay, this film's really going to throw some curveballs, and they do. I love how, I think you mentioned this, Justin, where they kind of put a spin on the alienated youth, where this time it's the parents who are incredulous as to what's going on with the youth, whereas typically it's the youth are like, we don't get our parents, and the parents are just their children, and little do they know that the children have been just kind of brainwashed. So I think that's a unique spin on that whole thing. The scene that really makes me cringe is when they're experimenting on Peter, and they have the needle in the eyeball. That really, really bothers me, because the needle goes all the way into his eyeball, and then when she takes the needle out of his eyeball, there's just this little trickle of blood just dripping out of his eye like a tear.
Cutaways either, which makes it more.
It looks realistic. There's no cutaways. It's shot really well. It's a good effect. The characters are really well written here. I think they're really well acted. Like Erik said, there's some genuine horror scenes in this film that are really well done. It's just kind of got this somber sadness to it that's kind of hard to articulate. But I found that kind of that somberness kind of carries over into the ending. I love the ending to this film because you get this little kind of ironic twist where the Lasang or whatever his name is, he tells Peter, he's like, kill your father. And then Peter stabs him. He's like, you are my father. Cause he's essentially, he is his father, cause he created this kind of, this mindless killing machine. So he's the father and he's going to die. But the film ends like where everyone kind of, they vanquished the evil and they've kind of moved on with their lives. The sheriff is marrying, the woman from One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. I never remember her name off the top of my head. Louise Fletcher. And so everyone seems happy. Everyone should be moving on with their lives, but yet there's still this kind of somberness to it, like something else is going on even after all the evil's been vanquished, and you don't really know what it is. It's very effective. I think this film's a lot of fun, and the slasher sequences are top notch. The scientific intrigue is really well done. I don't know. It's just I had a lot of fun with it. I'd be glad to see it again. So thumbs up.
Okay. Well, that's good. Yeah, it's an odd one, isn't it? But it was originally, I think, entitled Dead Kids, and then turned to Strange Behaviour, because Strange Invaders was the sequel, wasn't it? Well, not a sequel. It was a thematic, not thematic, but it was going to be like a loose trilogy around strangeness by the director. Has anyone seen Strange Invaders? I've not.
Not for a long time.
But it sounds really good. It's got quite a lot of the cast and crew for this movie, and it's got Nancy Allen in a kind of winning role. So I'd quite like to catch up with that.
It's much more sci-fi though, so I'm not sure if Nathan would like it, because there's lots of aliens and there's a spaceship in it as well. So.
But you love Evils of the Night, don't you, Nathan?
Yeah, you don't remember he picked it for Patreon.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So, okay, well, shall we look at some background for the film? Who would like to go first? I don't know if you've got anything. Nathan, what have you got for us? Nothing, okay. Joseph, how about you?
But Louise Fletcher was nicer here than she was in Flowers in the Attic.
That is true.
Not as nice as she was in Exorcist 2.
Did she eat any cookies in this one? I can't remember.
No.
No.
I'll answer that for you. No.
Okay. Well, Joseph, have you got any background for us?
What? No.
Oh, well.
Joseph.
Actually, the one thing I do have, Dan Shore, who played Peter Brady, he played Billy the Kid in Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. He's a little older in that film, but
okay.
Yeah. I need two men. Who's with me? We're with you, Billy the Kid.
Well, that's a nice bit of background. Well, thank you, Joseph. What about you, Erik?
A few things. I listened to the audio commentary on the Synapse DVD. I was hoping to do more this afternoon, but I spent most of my afternoon trying to fix the new software we're trying to record on. So Bill Condon, who his name sounds like Bill Condom, which is a rude piece of rubber that men use. He plays the first dead kid in the movie. He wrote the movie as well. He plays the first victim, the one who's sitting down doing his homework when the lights go out. That's him. Of course, he went on to be a Oscar-winning director. He not for Candyman, Farewell to the Flesh, which he directed, but for things like Gods and Monsters and Dreamgirls and things like that. Michael Laughlin, he was the director, and he was a famous producer in the 60s. He moved to London in the 70s to indulge in other pursuits, and moved back to LA in the late 70s, and this was the first movie he directed. He only ended up directing 3 movies. Of course, Strange Behaviour was the second one. It was funded by New Zealand money, which is why the reason it was filmed, shot there. The teacher in the early scenes, that was Fiona Lewis's husband at the time, and he was the producer of Easy Rider. And you would think that I would have written down his name, but I didn't. Klaus Kinski was originally cast as in the part of Dr. Lasang, or Lasange, I can't remember how it's pronounced. But he dropped out quite late in the day in one of his usual sort of eccentric, personality moments. So they got Australian actor Arthur Dignam to fill the role instead. And it was shot in 30 days in the summer, which would be our winter, of 1980, because they mention that the news of John Lennon's death arrived when they were on set. So that would have dated it as December 1980. And it was shot on a budget of $1 million. And that's all the information I have. Over to you, Justin.
Well, thank you, Erik. So I've got a few things to add. David Hemmings, who was the British actor who was in Dario Argento's Deep Red in 1975, was an executive producer on this. I found the budget set at $3 million, but I mean, who knows? Because quite often they might have inflated it to make it sound like it's a bigger budgeted film. Also, Michael Laughlin said it probably does make sense it was made with New Zealand money while they did it over there. But the interview I read with him in Starburst, I think it was, when he said he wanted the 50s look and he couldn't find it in the States, which I think sounded a bit odd because I'm sure you would have been able to find something. And it seemed a bit of a strange kind of choice to up 40 crew from America and send them over to New Zealand. On a whim kind of thing, on a low-budget movie. So it does make more sense that maybe that was because the New Zealand money wanted the film to be made there. He said that the title Dead Kids was inspired by the punk movement at the time, and one of the songs on there is, I can't remember which one it's now, but it's by the Boys Next Door, which went on to become The Birthday Party, which is of course Nick Cave's first two bands, although it's a ballad rather than not like kind of Release the Bats type kind of screamer. He said he wanted to end the film on a positive note because he didn't want, although ironically, and this is why the film is a little bit of a kind of this kind of weird amalgamation of all different types of things, and maybe possibly isn't completely coherent, is that although the idea of the title Dead Kids was born out of punk, he didn't want to do a downbeat ending, a nihilistic ending, so he put in the kind of the happy ending. I think we sort of mentioned that many of the cast and crew went on to appear in Strange Invaders, which was a box office failure, and so they didn't make the third in the trilogy or loose trilogy of Strange films, which is going to be like set around a private eye in the 40s or something. I think. What else is there? Just having a quick look. The film itself was received pretty well at time, not universally like many films at the time. A lot of them just kind of looked purely at the kind of horror elements and would just kind of raise their eyebrows and thought, "Oh God, here we go, not another teeny kill picture." But people like Jana Maslin in the New York Times called it an original offbeat film, a very fond and painstaking recreation of a 1950s mad scientist movie. Film Journal called it a magnificent new horror classic. It's superbly chilling and entertaining. And Rex Reed, who was a very famous film critic back in the day, says Strange Behaviour is in a class by itself. Fiona Lewis gives a terrifically maniacal performance as the icy murderess lady scientist. But some of the other reviews I've seen have been much less kind. Fiona Lewis, who was is a British actress, and she was in the second Dr. Phibes movie. She said that she kind of came out of semi-retirement to make the movie, and she said she did it because she liked the story. She said people had funny lines, and it starred Michael Murphy and Louise Fletcher. I always accept work with a director I think is smart and has a good idea. The film also wasn't banned, but it wasn't prosecuted for obscenity, but it was seized and confiscated in the UK under Section 3 of the Obscene Publications Act 1959 during the video nasty panic. And I kind of guess that may have been possibly because of the artwork for the release that I mentioned on VHS under the title Small Town Massacre, which was very... we talked about this ad infinitum about the video nasty panic, but quite often some movies were targeted because of their kind of salacious video covers, and this would have been one of them. Although it was a painting very much in a kind of EC Comics Tales from the Crypt kind of way, it kind of screamed at you, this is going to be like a gory slasher movie. So I think that is all I have. I'm
looking at that Small Town Massacre artwork now with the Tor Johnson mask, and it looks like a X-Acto knife. That is very, very lurid artwork. I love it.
Yes, great, isn't it? So,
it was reissued by Vipco at one stage with some maybe 20 seconds of cuts, I think it was, but it was all to do with the character of Peter slitting his wrists or slitting his arms at the end with the razor blades. All those scenes were cut. One thing I forgot to mention, actually, and this is relating to our Patreon episode that we've just recorded, is that a Very Brady sequel was also cut on VHS in the UK back in 1996-97 because of the nunchucks. Nunchucks were a banned item back in the day, so even things like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles were being censored. So there was any scenes with nunchucks in the Very Brady sequel were cut, which shows how bizarre the world was back in the 90s.
Well, it still is, but in different ways. So, well, thank you, Joseph. Shall we? What do people say about this film on the forums?
Okay, Facebook, Jim Guntharp Jr. says, a show-stopping dance sequence, a Tor Johnson mask, Fiona Lewis's indescribable hairstyle. What's not to love about this movie? Robert Long says, who can forget the dance scene? We also have a final guy instead of girl. Overall, it seems a bit overly complicated, but has some very effective scenes. Christian Koch, I don't know. Koch. How do you pronounce? I don't know how to pronounce his last name. Yeah, Koch. The scene in the bathroom is a real shocker. The movie has its ups and downs, but is brilliantly shot in those anamorphic Panavision lenses in CinemaScope. Great lighting. Michael Murphy delivers like he always does. TMS Turner says, I knew nothing about this one, so I watched it without any preconceived notions on Amazon Prime. Strange concoction with a fun role for Louise Fletcher. Now, am I the only one who thought Louise Fletcher was kind of useless in this film? She has some exposition towards the end, but for the most part, they could have cut her role and it wouldn't have made it much of a difference to the film.
I was thinking that as well.
Yeah. Mitch King says, such a weirdo classic. It's a bit convoluted, but it has some disturbing scenes. I saw this as a kid, and the peeing blood scene always freaked me out and has stuck with me. John Matthews says, a New Zealand classic, surreal Twilight Zone style slasher film that is not what it appears to be on the surface. The greatest horror film no one saw apart from us Aussies and Kiwis. Ricky Morgan says, I'm actually a fan of this one, but I do like my movies a little on the odd side. Blaine Geyser says, I remember enjoying it. Thought it was slow at first, but starts to kick up later on in the film. Jenny Hall Cameron says, not as good as I remembered, but liked the Tor Johnson mask. Hey, that's Billy the Kid. Too much Bill and Ted for this girl. Brennan Klein says, I actually really like this one. It is a surprisingly solid script and an excellent sense of small town atmosphere. And I never mind me a slasher that tips into another genre, especially mad science sci-fi. Mark Harrison says, is it bad that I first thought of the film Disturbing Behavior? Yes, Mark, that's bad. Derek Bourgeois. God, our fans, they're why can't they just be Smiths or Johnsons or
Joseph, you're
Jones.
Making friends and influencing people wherever you go.
Yeah. Derek says, I always dug this one. It's like an evil mad scientist tale that does have slasher elements in it. Yvette Killahere says, love it, weird and wonderful. Any movie that can make New Zealand look like small town Illinois is a winner in my book. Tyler Elkins says the dance sequence alone is worth paying for and everything else is an added bonus. Patrick Hamilton says that choreographed dance number out of nowhere is a showstopper. You're either in or out at that point. Anthony Michael Dorgan says worth it for the brilliant dance scene. Andrew Huff says it's fucking insane. Okay. On Instagram, Lou Toad says one of my favorites, nothing quite like it. Yeti Hideout says, wonderful. Fiona Lewis is a fun villain. Hollywood Psychic says, one of my absolute faves. Vestron Movies, and I don't think that's the actual Vestron, but it'd be cool if it was, says, I just watched this the other week. I'd forgotten just how good this movie was. Andrew F. Moncrief, 1987, I guess that's your name, says, pretty good. Bitter Bastard and Kelly Show says, an odd film to be sure with a brilliant turn from Fiona Lewis, one of the rare female mad scientists in horror films. I really enjoyed the offbeat charm of this strange little import from New Zealand. Eugene Weaver 9 says, such a bizarre movie but incredibly watchable. Another minor gem here. Christian Comer says, the syringe in the eye is still the most cringe-inducing moment I've seen in any movie. It is an underrated gem, though. Todd All Things Horror says, who the heck trims their toenails at the damn breakfast table? Yeah, I hate that scene. Ugh, that's so gross. And on Twitter, Alone in the Dark Book says, Dead Kids is a classic 80s Ozploitation shocker, part mad scientist movie and part slasher with genuine creepy undertones. The Tor Johnson mask was so cool. They should have used it all the way through the movie. Great film, and if you dig male teenage ass, this won't disappoint.
I don't dig male teenage ass.
Well, it was kind of very bizarrely gratuitous, wasn't it? For no real reason.
And it was weird that he walks in naked with his father there shaving. It's just weird.
Mm. Well, it's another kind of weird what is choice.
Like, I'm just looking at that Small Town Massacre VHS art. I do like it, I have to say.
Mm. Well, one other thing.
I'd never seen it before until Justin mentioned it. It's very lurid. I like it.
But one other thing I was going to mention, that which I forgot to sort of mention, was about the director sort of said, because I think he was older, like you said, Erik, that he was a producer in the 1960s. So although Bill Condon was, I think, born in 55, so he was quite, he was the same age as, well, maybe a little bit older than the teenagers in this movie, whereas the director was a bit older. And he said that he didn't like contemporary horror movies. This and Strange Invaders were a love letter to 1950s movies, so it must have been a kid in the 50s. So it's, in some ways, it seems strange. I haven't really found an answer why he decided to make a movie that kind of adopted or borrowed tropes from the slasher movie that's very popular at the time. But he said he wasn't a fan of modern and 1981 horror movies, which of course in 1981 were largely, by and large, the slasher movies, apart from obviously your Howlings and American Werewolf in London, Ghost Stories and things like that. But by far and away the most popular type of horror movie in the early 80s was the slasher. So yeah, no, it's interesting. I never really got to the bottom of why he decided to make sort of co-opt this, unless of course it was just purely a commercial decision, which it may well have been. So, well, thank you for everyone who wrote in. Before we get on to some other feedback and the other bits of the show, I'll play another trailer for a friend of the show, and also after that, how to get in contact with the show.
Hey, Andrew.
Hey, Maddie.
Do you like horror movies?
I sure do.
Well, did you know that most horror movies are inspired by real-life horror?
Really? Like what?
Well, take The Shining, for instance. That's based on Stephen King's real-life addictions, or The Purge, which could be our country any minute now.
Oh, and The Strangers, which is based on a real-life murder. People should be talking about these things.
Hey, guys.
Oh, hey, Producer Michael.
Hi.
Well, I hate to break it to you, but somebody already is. It's you.
That's right. We are Friday the 13th, the podcast where we talk about horror in real life and horror in media, all from an LGBTQ perspective.
Because we gay, y'all.
We are proud members of the Legion Podcast Network, and we can be found on iTunes, SoundCloud, Stitcher, or wherever your favorite podcasts are found.
And follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Come along with us on this crazy journey, and as always,
get slayed.
Thank you for listening to The Hysteria Continues. Be sure to search for us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. If you enjoy our show, consider becoming a Patreon subscriber. That's patreon.com/The Hysteria Continues. You can email us at thehysteriacontinues@gmail.com.
Yes, keep on get in contact with the show, because we love hearing from you. And again, extra special thank you and shout out to all our Patreon supporters. Thank you for helping keep the show on the air. And we just recorded our Brady Bunch double feature, which was a lot of fun. But next time, we just announced we are back to horror with, well, not exactly a vengeance, but certainly back to strange horror with another early 80s masterpiece. The Samantha Eggar Weirdness, which is Demonoid, which is a very strange and campy film, which Nathan has never seen before, and so I'm looking forward to seeing what he thinks about that. So that's next, coming up next month on Patreon, and we'll be deciding on the top 3 fairly soon. But well, shall we? Do you want to do an after the credits? It'll be interesting.
I've got some feedback too, just so you guys know, because I'm afraid I'll forget it if I don't.
Okay, well, should we do that first then? What's your feedback?
It says, hello, gentlemen. Once again, creep into your inbox to share a curious tidbit that I believe Nathan might enjoy. I've been perusing the internet, picking up back issues of Fangoria to add to my ever-growing collection of horror-related media. My most recent edition is Fangoria issue number 68, featuring Roy Burns on the cover. Right up front is criminally insane, with cover art and a lengthy write-up to boot. The review is overall quite positive, but they do point out the film's flaws in quite humorous ways, such as describing it as Herschel Gordon Lewis meets John Waters and comparing the special effects to an 8th grade production. Highly recommended, and special mention is made to Crazy Fat Ethel 2, though no further thoughts on that make it into the article. I'm glad to see that these kind of films, in the most loose definition of the word, make an appearance on these old pages, and having listened to your podcast ever since I was a teenager, seeing films I've grown accustomed to through your show is always a treat and brings back fond memories of first discovering Hysteria Continues all those years ago. From your resident supervillain, the Hobgoblin. I'm going to have to look for that Fangoria issue because I love Criminally Insane, as you all know.
How long exactly have we been on air?
I know. Since he's been a teenager, I'm like, have we been on that long?
8 years.
8 long years. Yes. Well, thank you, Hobgoblin.
I've got a really big one.
Oh, I see. Okay. Yeah, go on then.
This is from Jay, and Jay is a podcaster also of Have You Seen This One? HaveYouSeenThisOne.com is the address. So Jay says, hello, Podfathers. Jay here, writing to you from Austin, Texas. So the last few months have been a little crazy around here that I'm only now catching up with your shows going all the way back to December. By the way, I picked Christmas Evil for our holiday podcast also. Ooh, competition. Justin, I finally got my copy of your book and I'm enjoying the hell out of it. Well done. I especially enjoyed your collection of posters that you share. The foreign ones are my favorites. Nathan, OMG, I absolutely love I Know Who Killed Me. It's so absolutely sleazy. Probably my favorite Lindsay Lohan movie, although that is admittedly a very short list. Thanks so much for turning me on, Nathan.
Oh, you're welcome.
No. He says, sorry, I should complete that sentence. He says, thanks so much for turning me on to After Midnight. There will never be enough horror anthologies out there as far as I'm concerned. Adding this one to my list of faves. I loved hearing Cherry Falls brought up also. I love that movie so much, although I was disappointed with the Blu-ray I got recently. No lost scenes. Also, when you brought up the movie Terror Tract, it reminded me of a double feature DVD I used to own that had both Cherry Falls and Terror Tract. I lent it to an unreliable friend, in inverted commas, who I'm not in touch with anymore, and never got it back. It's also a treat when Amanda Reyes is on the show. I got so excited when I heard her brought up seeing the Sharksploitation show at the Alamo Drafthouse. I was there too, Amanda. It was amazing, and the best film they showed that day had to be Blood Beach, although it's always great to see the great Robert Forster, so I have to give a big shout out to Alligator as well. And speaking of Robert Forster, can I weigh in on the whole horror hottie thing? As far as the debate about Patrick Swayze versus Billy Zane goes, I'm definitely in the Billy Zane camp. I always liked Mr. Swayze, and he was an incredible dancer, but as far as hotness goes, he can't hold a candle to Mr. Zane. Also, Erik, that's me, I couldn't agree more about John Vernon being a hottie, but my pick has to be Tom Towles as Otis in Henry Portrait of a Serial Killer. He plays such a sicko, but my heart beats a little faster every time I see him in the film. My husband agrees with me, even though he'll never watch the whole film with me. I'm super pumped about Joe Bob Briggs' new series on Shudder, a different horror double bill every week. Sign me up. It also made me wonder, I don't think I've ever heard you discuss Shudder on the show. Do you folks get that streaming channel on your side of the pond? It's my go-to when I'm just wanting to chill on the couch with something chilling. Just one last thing, have you discussed the movie Terrifier? I recently fell in love with it, and all my horror hound friends agree with me. That's some splattertastic stuff. I am super enjoying the Patreon episodes. I look forward to whatever nutty, fun, entertaining choice is next. That's Demonoid. Keep up the great work, gents. Okay, I've bent you boys' ears long enough. Now it's y'all's turn. Your fan, Jay Bullington, producer and co-host of Have You Seen This One, a.k.a. Hysto, Hysto, HaveYouSeenThisOne.com. So, Shudder. We don't get Shudder in Ireland. I can see the app on my Xbox, but I cannot log into it because it's UK only subscription. Justin, I know you're in Lanzarote now, but when you were in the UK, did you subscribe to Shudder at all?
No, I knew of it, but never subscribed. To be honest,
they have a huge amount of Arrow titles on it, which is great. But I had a lot of them on Blu-ray anyway, so it wasn't really something I felt I needed. But if Shudder ever became available in Ireland, I might be tempted. It depends on the catalog, of course, and whether I have the films already. Do you guys in the States subscribe to Shudder at all?
I have.
Yeah, is it good?
It's good. They add new movies, I'd say, regularly. So and they've got some good stuff on there. So yeah.
Cool. Well, we'll have to.
Terrifier. We did discuss the film Terrifier. That's the one with the clown, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah.
With Art the Clown.
Yeah.
I liked it.
Parts of, and I didn't like other parts of.
I like the first half. The second half, I just thought was it felt like a Rob Zombie film. It just kind of veered into that kind of screeching, annoying territory too quickly.
Fair enough. But, well, thank you, Jay, and we'll look forward to checking out your podcast and suggest everyone else does too.
Okay, that's me done for my feedback.
Okay, well, I have found that feedback, and how could I have forgotten this from the lovely Simon Logan? Yes, Simon Logan. That's Simon Logan. It's a short one, I'm afraid, but he does say, hi, guys, and what he doesn't make up in length, he certainly makes up with the little sound clip he sent, and, well, let's get into it, as it were. After listening to the recent Top 3 So Bad They're Good Patreon episode, I couldn't believe this little line slipped you all by without comment, so I thought I would do a THC public service and clip it for you. Perhaps something which Erik could slip into his soundboard. So, this is apparently what we said, and I'm very disappointed, Erik, that you didn't comment on this. But when you see see it uncut, then it is quite something. So
I'm very surprised I didn't comment on that.
Well, I know we must have been very in the moment, mustn't we? Because I don't think I don't even think that was meant as a double entendre. I think it just, I slipped between my lips.
Erik, do you have a joke of the week? Because I do.
I do as well, and mine is awesome.
It's my joke of the week. It's so fantastic.
The director was planning to do a third film in the Strange trilogy after Strange Behavior and Strange Invaders. It was going to be a biopic about the B-52s, and it was going to be called Strange Beehive Hair.
Oh, Erik. Well, I appreciate. I think.
Oh boy!
Moving.
Nathan has died.
He's still bothering me, but it was something.
It was certainly was something. Well, let's see if Joseph can top you.
It's my joke of the week. It's so fantastic.
So apparently the lead actor who plays Peter in this film, he didn't get along with the director because he was never on set. He was always at the beach.
Oh dear, that deserves this.
I didn't hear anything, Erik.
My soundboard.
Oh no.
Your soundboard's not working, Erik. My joke killed your soundboard.
It's so
it was
bad.
Harold's toilet. It was Harold's toilet sounds.
Is it not coming through?
Understand your joke.
Oh no.
The beach?
Oh no.
Yeah, Dan Shore, the beach. It's shore, beach, shore.
I think my B-52's joke was far superior. Yeah.
All I can do is
just say they were about equal.
Yeah. Let me just
How dare
play
you, Nathan Johnson.
I'll just play this instead. But when you see see it uncut, then it is quite something.
Mate.
So, okay. Would we like an after the credits? Do we feel like we have anything left to give?
I don't really have anything because I feel like they've wrapped it up.
I know.
I can't
rather
understand
do
why
too.
my soundboard isn't working. I've got so many funny sounds to play.
And I can't believe it's not butter. So.
That was a sympathy wah-wah for you, Erik.
No, it was Joseph said, I can't believe it's not butter.
No, I said sympathy wah-wah for your lack of soundboard.
Soundboard.
Because I know how every single time you entertain us and all our dear listeners with your endless clips of plopping, fat people plopping.
Well, what's funny is Erik was actually playing the soundboard when I joined the voice channel, and now it's not working. I think my joke really did kill it.
It did. It was working earlier.
Well, I think this is all very strange behaviour. This is what happens when you try a new recording setup. So yeah, well.
You're going to try and style your hair in a strange beehive hair later.
Okay. We'll give that a go. So, well, I don't know if there's really anything left to say about let's talk about what we're doing next time. So I think it's your choice, Erik, isn't it?
It is my pick, and we are going back to the Bates Motel for Police Academy 5.
Assignment Miami
Beach. That's the one. Mm-hmm. Now we're going to Psycho 2, as we mentioned, I think, a couple of weeks back. Yeah, Psycho 2. I've got the shiny Blu-ray from Arrow waiting to be unwrapped from its cellophane. So looking forward to watching that again.
Are you going to have like a B-52 psycho joke?
Not all my jokes are based on the B-52s. There's a lot of variety and depth to my joke factory.
Well, remains to be seen. So, well, thank you everyone who's joined us for Dead Kids, aka Strange Behaviour. And as we know, we're back to the Bates Motel next time. But we can be playing out with a little number called Jumping Out a Window by Pop Mechanics, who were a New Zealand
I love that song.
Pop combo.
I prefer Lou Christie's song.
Well,
fair.
What do you mean it's not fair? I thought you liked this song, Eric. It's very early 80s. I thought
I prefer the Lou Christie one, and I want everything my way.
We can't.
Eric, is your life now over? Is your life over?
Yeah.
You might as well not go, go on living.
It's the worst thing that's happened to me ever.
Well,
this is the biggest pickle I've ever gotten myself into.
Yes. So, okay, well, thank you for listening to the Hysteria Continues, and look forward to catching up with you next time. So, until we head to the Bates Motel, say goodbye to the good people.
Bye. I'm going to the shore, the beach, or whatever.
Let it go, man.